Hi, this is Misha, and this video is on the Zastava PAP Rifle series. Specifically, this is kind of a disambiguation of the different generations and variants. This isn't about the history, and we have shooting videos on some of these, so this is just to show you the differences in the various generations. In my hands is a Generation 1 PAP M70. And then after that, we'll have a Generation 2. This is called the NPAP M70. And then finally, we have a Generation 3, what is called the OPAP M70, and this one is my personal gun that is modified. So it's not quite exact, but it's the best I can do on short guns as far as showing a Gen 3 OPAP. Well, going back to the first generation, these are all imported and have been and still are today by Century Arms. However, before they got going, a company called European American Arms, EAA, imported the original PAP rifle, which was made by Zastava in Serbia, and it was a single stack thumb hole stock gun, and the back of the receiver was slant cut. Some of you might recognize slant cuts from the days of the Chinese Mac 90 and all that. But that's how the original PAPs came in from Serbia by EAA. They didn't get a lot of attention. You didn't hear much about them. But then Century Arms imported the Generation 1 PAP M70. And the major difference with it is that it has a square back receiver. And even though these came in with thumb hole stocks, it meant that Century could put an M70 military style stock and pistol grip on them, converting them into something like a military configuration. Also, they had 14x1 left-hand threaded muzzles. When they came in, there was a muzzle nut welded on. Century would break the weld, and then they would screw on a standard slant brake. It's also a compliance part. Well, starting from the muzzle here on this original generation, we've got a standard front sight. There is no cleaning rod under the barrel, even though there's provisions for it here. But these hand guards, they're not drilled for a cleaning rod inside. So if you try to shove one down, this won't go past here. There's this front sling swivel. Pretty standard rear sights. We have this Picatinny rail on the dust cover, but this fits very loosely, so it's basically useless, frankly. Most people would just pull these off and put on smooth dust covers. This first generation of PAP has a 1.5mm stamped heavy-duty receiver, and as you see here, it does have the bulged RPK style trunnion. It also has the heavier profile AK-47 type barrel, not the thinner profile AKM. It does have the extended length Yugo M70 type handguards. It does have the retaining pin in the back to retain the bolt guide and that guard, the spring guide here for disassembly. Originally this was installed on military guns for grenade launching, but obviously in a semi-auto it doesn't really matter. We have a M70 style buttstock, although this is US made like the handguards, and it has a rubber recoil pad on it. Again, it's a commercial pad, but it's very similar to the military style. When these came in, they were single stack. Pull this out. This is a standard, very tight mag. There we go. Century machined out the mag well. They also machined out the trunnion inside here to take double stacks. Unfortunately, they left the single stack compatible bolt in these. So that would end up leading to some feeding trouble in some Generation 1 PAPs, not all of them. This one here came into my shop new, and I sold it to a friend whenever these came in about 4 or 5 years ago. And he's had it all that time, and he hasn't actually changed the bolt out. It's worked fine for him, but other people had difficulties. So this was a Gen 1 PAP. Blued finish, which are being built. The US parts on these were the furniture set, trigger group, pistol grip, and muzzle brake. Everything else was Zastava. Also built from all new matching serial parts. As I said though, they had some trouble with the Gen 1s, and that's where the Gen 2 NPAP came from. Now this is a current production NPAP from 2016, so it has a few differences from the original NPAPs, but they're very, very minor. Essentially, the major difference with the NPAP, even though because of import regulations, these still had to come in with single stack mag wells in the receiver, Century had to cut out. The trunnion and the bolt were double stack compatible. So this means they were much more reliable on the feeding from standard double stack magazines. Nowadays they do come with these Magpul P-Mags. Originally they would come with either a Tapco mag or original Yugoslavian style bolt hold open mag. The front end is very, very similar to the Gen 1, except now we can have a cleaning rod under the barrel because the handguards are drilled out for it. We did away with that goofy top rail mount, and now we have this side rail mount, which they call a universal rail mount, but some people have trouble finding something that will clamp to it. A major difference now though, we went from having a 1.5mm receiver with a bulge trunnion to a 1.0mm receiver with a standard front trunnion. So this is a little bit lighter, and you can tell, especially right here, because of the trunnion. More recent ones like this do have the rear sling swivel. If you notice, the Gen 1 did not have any kind of rear sling swivel, and the first NPAPs did not have one either, but this is a US made stock, so it has a rear sling swivel now, but it has just a standard ribbed steel butt plate as opposed to the rubber. Again, the early NPAPs used the same stock as the Gen 1 PAPs. These are still coming in. Originally they would come with Tapco G2 trigger groups, but these days they're shipping with Century Arms brand trigger groups instead. And finally we have the Generation 3 OPAP. Now these were interesting because they were built from some surplus refurbished M70B1 parts. For example, flip it around here again. The front sight, while it does lack the actual flip-up night sights, is cut out for it. And the rear sight is as well. Standard front end, like the others. These were fitted with surplus military wooden furniture as opposed to new US made furniture. In my opinion, this is much better furniture. We still have the side rail and not the top rail, but this is a return to the 1.5mm stamped receiver with bulge front trunnion, which many people like and desire. It's got a Yugo bolt hold open mag in this one here. Did you see? A lot of these shipped with them. Some of them shipped with Tapco mags. Now, if you notice, the safety on this is a standard G1 style safety. No cutout. But the safety on the Gen 1 and 2 is the more modern style with a cutout to hold the bolt back. This never wants to work with me on camera. It works best when you put Yugo mags in these because you can just easily do it. He likes fighting me. Like I said, it never wants to do it on camera. But, there we go. When the bolt hold open mag is empty and in there, it already holds it back and you can just flip up the safety. It's pretty secure. It doesn't necessarily want to go forward on its own unless you really hit it. A lot better than those hold open safeties on the Archers at any rate. But in a nutshell, that's the differences between the 3 generations of PAP. The Gen 1s only came in for a brief period of time. The Gen 2 NPAPs are still coming in, and the OPAPs do not seem to be coming in any longer. They, again, they were built from a lot of used parts. It's a good thing because we actually have authentic M70 B1 components on these. But it seems like once that supply ran out, they quit bringing these in. Excuse me. I know my sales rep at Century did tell me the OPAPs were going to be a relatively limited production item compared to the other ones, so I guess he was correct. We have a shooting video on this one, so I don't want to get too much into the mods, but just to be clear, I did add these grenade sights and the bayonet lug and the rear sling swivel to this one. It did not come with it. Alright, we'll move on. So to go along with the fixed-stocked NPAP rifle here, they also have the same gun, but as a factory underfolder. This is the Zastava NPAP-DF. It has a military underfolding metal stock, and it has original military refurbished surplus looking handguards. So because they need one extra US part, I believe the gas piston is now US made as well. But these are coming in as an option. Obviously they don't have the side rail because they're an underfolder, but they still have the 1.0 millimeter stamped receiver like the NPAP, unlike the OPAP and the PAP, which have the 1.5. Front end's the same. Yeah, pretty well the same. No bayonet lug because this is an import. You can see here where the old weld was to lock on the muzzle nut when this came in from import. So kind of like the NPAP-DF, we have a shooting video on one of these as well. Not this exact one, but one of them. Quite a nice rifle, factory built underfolder. And kind of as the carbine or compact version, we have the PAP M92 Pv pistol. These have been coming in for quite some time now. And this is a semi-automatic only version of their M92, which is their take on the AKSU, or crank as it's often called. It has a 10-inch barrel as opposed to 16. It has 26 millimeter threads as opposed to 14 on the other ones. We've got a short gas system. We have a flip-up night sight paddle here, but instead of being a night sight, it actually just has white paint, so I guess you could call it a low light sight. You could also put glow-in-the-dark paint or even a tritium vial in there if you wanted to. We have a hinged top cover, that's what any good crank should have. Let's see if I can do this on camera. There we go. See? It's actually hinged to the sight block there. It's got a 2-position crank style leaf rear sight. This still uses the 1.0 millimeter stamped receiver with the standard weight front trunnion, which is correct for the M92. This is, and by the way, and sorry I didn't mention this earlier, but all of these do not have chrome line barrels, and that is correct for a Zastava military rifle in 7.62 by 39. They just didn't chrome their barrels in that caliber. However, when they did go over to the 5.56 NATO caliber, as with the M85, M90, M95, they did start chroming the barrels. So the 223 Zastava rifles will have chrome line barrels. Also, the M85, which is exactly like this gun, except in 223, will have the 1.5 millimeter receiver and bulge trunnion like the OPAP in the original Gen 1 PAP. There is a rifle version of the OPAP, of the NPAP in 223 called the M90 NP. It feeds from AR-15 mags. That modification is done here in the USA. There's also a 308 version called the M77 PS. So there are a few other members to this family, but these are the ones in 7.62x39 I thought we'd show today, and just kind of mention a few of the differences and similarities. There's a little bit of talk on the internet about issues with these, but I've did as much reading and research as possible. Also, I've been shooting some of them for several years now, and it does not seem like the issues are as extreme as people make them out to be. And by that I mean, I haven't really noticed a higher rate of failure with a PAP versus all the other guns that are out there, Arsenals and Segas and different kit builds. It seems to be that the back of the bolt carrier is being pinged a little bit in some people's rifles. It's not cosmetically attractive, but it doesn't seem to really harm anything. And some people complain about kind of weird shaped rivets, and some of them, pinged rivets and egged rivets, but nothing seems like it's leading to not just catastrophic failures, which is not happening, but not even failures to cycle. As with any mass-produced gun, there are limits, and there's no way around it. That's just mass production for you. But the two best fixes I've read about, and it seems like they work, is to, one, put an extra power recoil spring, say from Wolf, in here, and two, to replace the Tapco trigger grip, which is what has the Century one anyway, but to replace the Tapco G2 trigger grip with something else. Either an original hammer, and then that's really the problem, or something from Red Star, Arsenal, whoever. There's a bunch of makers out there, ALG. But it seems like the culprit is mostly the USA-made trigger group combined with some rifles shipping with weaker than really needed springs. I'm not saying that there aren't a few lemons. Again, I'm sure there are some. These are mass-produced, and you have to also keep in mind these aren't $1,200, $1,500 rifles. These are economy rifles. I mean, in one time they were as low as $500. Now they're about $650, $700. So, you get what you pay for, and Century's known for cutting a few corners here and there. But, at the same time, they do try to bring a product to market that most people can afford. At least something that's noticeably cheaper than an Arsenal. I like Arsenals. I have videos on them. I like AKs. I've had good luck out of my PAPs. And but I do understand that all the generations and changes kind of are confusing. What's to take out of it? The Gen 1s were not around that long. So don't worry if, 2017 about buying one with a single stack bolt. It's not going to happen unless you buy an early used one. Any of your new guns are going to be fine. The only issues with a current import NPAP like this furniture that Century installs, this US-made furniture, doesn't seem to be very durable. It's attractive and it's wood, but it seems like it's kind of wood via IKEA, made from leftover popsicle sticks or something. It's just not real durable. It feels very lightweight. So if you're going to get one of these and run it hard, I would encourage you to look at for a surplus set of M70 furniture, or something else by Magpul or one of the other U.S. makers. That's really my only beef. So basically, in my opinion and my experience, and I've been selling these since they first came out, so not only my guns I've been running, but guns I've sold to customers, like that Gen 1 you saw. The Zastava part, the receiver, the barrel, the bolt, seem to be good to go. It's the US-made components that are mostly giving small issues, and those are easily swapped out. Again, you're getting a Zastava rifle for well under $1,000. It sure beats paying $2,500, $3,000 for a pre-band Mitchell's, because there's only a few thousand of those in the country. Anyway, just thought we'd talk about the Zastava PAP. If you have any questions or comments, please post them below, and I'm sure there's a few little details I left out, and I'll be happy to mention those in the comments as they occur to me, as always. But yeah, we just thought we'd share something that's definitely one of the better value AKs on the market, along with the Wassers and whatnot. So as always, we appreciate you tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.